U.S. has added 14 million new jobs since the Great Recession. A good start. But too many families see the special interests gaining the upper hand in Washington, while paychecks don't go far enough. If you work hard, your paycheck should show it. You earn Social Security. It should be there when you retire. And you shouldn't have to go broke to afford college. I'm Katie McGinty, and I approve this message because it's your turn.
Because qualifications count more than money.
Because my vote is earned, not bought.
Because grassroots power can stop big money.
Because Jamie has always been a progressive.
Because literally, Jamie Raskin wrote the book on campaign finance reform.
And Jamie's the only candidate who's done more than talk.
Because he's the only one who's actually written major progressive laws.
To pass the Green Maryland Act.
To ban military-style assault weapons in Maryland.
Ban the death penalty.
Pass equal pay for women.
Marriage equality for all.
Because no other candidate has that kind of record.
And it's not even close.
Because Jamie Raskin is one of the coolest, smartest, kindest, most passionate candidates I've ever seen.
Because my vote is not for sale.
And we need the kind of progressive that money can't buy.
Because Jamie Raskin represents us.
It's my honor to introduce the former president.
Let's give Senator Brown another hand. I thought that was a great speech. When Chad was up here talking, I thought if I had a lick of sense, I wouldn't say anything but amen and get down. But I'm thankful. I want to thank Congressman Tim Ryan was just here, and he is gone to Youngstown to be with Hillary. And I thank him for his support because he is the chair of the Manufacturing Caucus in the House of Representatives, and he has been great explaining why he thinks she has the best plan to bring manufacturing jobs back to America. I'll do the best I can here in a minute, but I don't think I can do as well as Tim. He's done a great job. I want to thank Mayor Horgan for welcoming us here and your family. Thank you for coming. Representative Greta Johnson, County Executive Russ Pride, thank you. And I too want to thank the Regional Labor Council and the Steelworkers Local 2 for letting us come here today. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you. I want to thank former Congressman Tom Sawyer and former Mayor Don Pasquale, who's been with me since the first time I ever came to Akron. Thank you. He looks better than he did when he was mayor. You know, that's there is life after politics, but it's hard to get used to. Look, I just want to say a couple of things. Sharon has sort of laid out the case for Hillary, but I want to say first that this election is profoundly important for positive and negative reasons. The negative reasons are clear when you watch their debates. And last night, I've been trying to think of what to say about all that pushing and shoving and near violence and who's responsible and no, I'm not, and all that kind of stuff. Here's what I know. That I learned from Nelson Mandela, who was my friend for more than 20 years until he died. He served his entire term with me. And as all of you know, he was in prison for 27 years. He was brutalized. He had a horrible, horrible time of it. He didn't get to see his children grow up. It ruined his marriage. He had to start all over again. And it broke his health. So one day when we really got to know each other, I said, you know, it was really smart of you to invite your jailers to your inauguration. Smart of you to be kind to the political party that actually put you in prison. But now tell me the truth. When they let you out finally, didn't you hate them all over again? And here's what Mandela said. He said, yes, briefly I did, because I thought of all that I had lost. And he said, I also hated them for the first 11 years I was in prison. Every single day I had to go out and break rocks And I lived in a 14 by 14 cell, and I hated them. And one day I realized all they had already taken from me, and that they could take it all. They could kill me without a second thought. Nothing would ever happen. I realized they could take everything from me except my mind and my heart. Those things I would have to give away. And I decided not to give them away. And then he looked at me and said, neither should you. Neither should you. If you think about it, every single day of our lives, forget about Donald Trump, every single day of our lives, if we are not careful, we give away just a little smidgen of our mind or our heart when we look down on other people, feel hostile, think that our differences are more important than our common humanity. Hey, our differences matter a lot. Makes life more interesting, increases the chance that progress will be made, good decisions will be made. But our common humanity has to matter more. What horrifies us, even if we can't quite articulate it, about all this vicious rhetoric, callous disregard for anybody's sensitivity, and it morphing into violence, and producing an equal and opposite reaction among people on our side, is that somehow we know that we ought to be better than that. Absolutely. And you know, I remember when Hillary won her big victory in South Carolina, she said she thought we had to strive to be a kinder country. And a lot of people made fun of her, especially since they just brutalize her every day. But she believes that. And she also knows that this is just Republican MO. They're flattering her by telling the people that they don't want to run against her. So please let us beat her up now and you vote against her so we don't have to deal with her in November. I hope they'll have no such luck. Thanks to Ohio, I hope they won't. Serious thing. And it shows you why we cannot afford to have a Republican president, a Republican Congress, and a Republican Supreme Court if we are going to move forward together. Now, this vacancy on the Supreme Court has thrown the differences into high relief. Why? Because by a 5-4 vote, the previous Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act and led to this gusher of voting rights restrictions in Ohio, in North Carolina, and other places around America. Second, this Supreme Court has a case before it now which would gut public employee unions.
Yes.
Third, I could give you 10, but I'll stop at 3. Third, the previous Supreme Court decided the Citizens United decision, which most of you know basically legalized whatever big money there can be in politics. But let me tell you what the ruling was. In common language, the ruling was the Constitution gives us all a right to free speech. Now, we all agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So if somebody came in here through that door and started calling me names, I would ask you all to be quiet and let's listen to what the person has to say. And then I'd ask him to give me an answer, because we're all entitled to free speech. Step 2, reach inside your pocket or in your back pocket of your purse and jangle your money. Your money is a part of your speech. Step 3, therefore, obviously, the minimum wage worker and the billionaire are equally free to spend whatever they want on politics. Now that's the rule. They literally have tacked a for sale sign on the door of our democracy. Therefore, the president is right to try to make this appointment, and the Senate should consider it. But what I want all of you to understand about this election is, whether it's approved or not, there's at least a 50% chance that the next president will make another 1 or 2 appointments. So the American people have to be careful who they elect president and for what reason. Now, my position on Hillary is just to amplify what Senator Brown said is, yes, she's the best qualified and the only one still left who is completely qualified to be president on national security grounds and domestic, economic, and social grounds from the first day. I think it would be a good thing if we had the first woman president. I believe that. But the real reason I want you to vote for her is that for the first time since the crash in 2008, we finally have a chance to rise together. If you think about it, that's the source of all this anxiety we're seeing in both parties' primaries. And as the president got on television, said in the State of the Union, told the absolute truth. He said, we're doing better than other big countries. We've had 14 million jobs in 5 years. That's the largest number of jobs since that other Democrat was president. Whatever his name was. And he said, we've got over 90% of our people with health insurance for the first time in history. And we got the best system of higher education in the world. We have the best science and technology base in the world. We rank #1 in the world or #2 in every scientific survey, and our party still believes in science. Every scientific survey, and our ability to generate our own electricity from the sun and the wind and other renewable sources, so we create millions of jobs that cannot be outsourced, helping to save the planet and grow our economy. So don't be afraid, embrace change, don't turn away from it. Now, that is factually true. But the reason there's so much anxiety, anger, frustration, disorientation, vulnerability to the resentment politics is that that's a pretty picture of the future that millions of Americans still can't see themselves in. You agree with that? Yeah. Because only about 16% of the American people have gotten a real pay raise since that crash. Half the American people after inflation are living on what they were making the last day I left office. You got all these kids who graduated from college and haven't found good jobs yet and can't move out of their parents' house because they can't pay their debt. That's right. You have all these people who are still caught in what's called the coverage gap, even in Ohio where you did take the Medicaid expansion, which helps untold numbers of working people. There are a lot of people who don't have employer-based coverage for whom the individual market and the small business insurance market aren't working so well yet. In other words, just stuff needling people all the time, even if they've got jobs. So Hillary is running for president so every single American can find themselves in that pretty picture the president painted, because she wants us to all rise together. We can do that. That means more jobs and higher incomes. And just briefly, I think that the major sources of more jobs, none of which can be outsourced really, are a major commitment to infrastructure spending and a major commitment to making America the clean energy capital of the world. Now, if you look at and she thinks about things that often get missed. She does want to lower the prison population and let a lot of these people out who are in for nonviolent offenses. But she said we would be wrong and irresponsible to do it unless we gave them education, training, and job placement, and said you cannot discriminate against them. They got a chance to start again. She does want to tackle, she's the first person to say we got to tackle this prescription drug and heroin problem. Yes. And she was thrilled. We were to read in the paper today that the Senate passed the bill yesterday. But she also said there's no point in doing that alone. We also need to give serious tax incentives to invest in these areas that have been left out and left behind, because a lot of these people are not dying of drug addiction. They're really dying of a broken heart. We need to give them something to do, something to look forward when they get up in the morning, and the mental health and the treatment. If we do both together, we can all rise together. And I'm just saying, if you look at everything she's done as Secretary of State, as a senator from New York, as a First Lady, everything she did, she had Republican as well as Democrat support for. I mean, she talked Tom DeLay, the Republican who hated me most, in the pre-Tea Party Congress, into helping her with an adoption bill. He had adopted kids. She said, I know we don't agree on much. He said, do we agree on anything? He said, yeah. You love your kids. He said, what's that got to do with it? She said, look, Congressman, this country is exploding with kids in foster care who are going to age out of 18. They have no place to live, no schools, no education, nothing to do. It is criminal for us to let this happen. And he said, what can we do about it? She said, people are afraid to adopt non-infants. They're afraid they can't influence their lives enough. They're afraid they'll fail. And they're terrified to adopt children with special needs because they're afraid they won't be able to afford it. So let's give a huge tax credit to people who adopt non-infant children, and a bigger one if they have special needs, and see what happened. I'll tell you what happened. They did it, and we increased by 80% the number of kids getting adopted out of foster care. That's the kind of stuff she does. And I just tell you this, and then I'll quit, because you know what she did as Secretary of State, but I got so tickled the other day because I ran into a guy who had to retire to Florida for health reasons, who was the head of the Farm Bureau on Long Island. Lifetime Republican. When Hillary was a senator from New York, she helped the wine growers, the farmers, the little manufacturers in upstate, all the people that everybody else forgot about. She helped them. So this guy endorses her for re-election. The press rushes up and said, I thought you were a Republican. He said, I am. Well, how can you endorse her? He said, look, all these politicians sound good when they're talking. All I know is I've been doing this a long time. She is the only person who ever actually did anything for us, and I am for her. So, that's my case. You have to decide how important it is for you to get moving in a hurry. How important it is for you to have somebody who keeps an open door but knows when to shut the door on shutting our principles down. You've got to know when to stand your ground and when to seek common ground. She's been brilliant at it all her life. And I don't think it's close to be the best president. I was very grateful that Sharon said in so many ways he trusted her. He said it because when she walked out of the Secretary of State's office, she was the most popular, most trusted person in public life, had the lowest unfavorable. What happened? The Republicans, aided by their allies in the political press, went after her. And they realized that if you charge people with something over and over and over, it doesn't matter if everything they say is wrong. The cumulative effect was there must be something there. It's a game. And she wears it as a badge of honor because what they're really saying is, please don't nominate her. We don't want to run against her. For all we know, people will get it figured out if you're going to run. I'm laughing, but I dare say there's not another person in American public life that could have stood before that special Benghazi committee for 11 hours. And, you know, the major fatality of the Benghazi hearing was the House Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy. Because he did this interview on Fox News, and they said, you guys haven't done anything. You promised to repeal the health care right program. You haven't done anything. He said, oh, yes, look what our special committee did to Hillary Clinton's approval rating. That was their #1 achievement for a year in Congress. And you know what? I sort of liked the guy for telling the truth. Because it wasn't like the press didn't know that was going on. They already had 7 congressional hearings on this. All the other committees, all chaired by Republicans, all said she didn't do anything wrong. You got other things to do. You can't possibly know that this has never happened before in the history of the country. That we have just trashed our traditions of bipartisan cooperation and foreign policy. So they just keep on doing it. Until finally, McCarthy told the truth. I suggested that the Democrats vote for him for Speaker. On the theory that we could deal with anybody who tell us the truth. And the poor man could not be elected Speaker of the House anymore because he had told the truth about the special Benghazi committee. That will show you how much trouble we're in Washington. We better elect a grown-up in the room. Somebody that always makes people do the right thing. Somebody that will never embarrass us on the debate stage in the world. And somebody that will empower us to all rise together. Thank you, and God bless you.